What is up, YouTube? Hope you guys are having a good Monday night. Matt here, chilling in the bathroom. Another Monday night or Monday McKeever. I forget what we're calling it now. It used to be Monday night Matt McKeever Monday Madness, something like that. There was a bunch of them. Anyways, Monday nights is really where I just hang out with you guys in the bathroom. We chat. Usually I smoke a little bit of weed. I don't think I'm going to be smoking quite as much tonight, just not feeling it, but you guys feel free to partake and definitely hit me up with any of your questions about real estate investing, personal finances, anything like that. Otherwise, jump into those comment sections, start hitting it up, and we'll see what's up. Marijuana Mondays, yes sir. Already smoking in Etobicoke, awesome. So yeah, how was everyone's weekend? We had a really big event for Cashflow Tribe this weekend, which was awesome. Fantastic weekend with awesome people. If you guys weren't there, you missed out. Do you have a stock portfolio? I've got a small amount of money in stocks. I've got some like blue chip Canadian banks and stuff, and some what else do I got? Just like I've got a drip portfolio, like a true drip portfolio I put together. I used to be a really big drip investor and really enjoyed investing in drips, and so like literally dripinvesting.org used to be deep into those forums and things like that. Still have a small drip portfolio that is just kind of doing its own thing. Also have a handful of shares. Hey, what's up, Sahas? I haven't posted it yet on social media, guys, but Sahas gave me just the most amazing caricature, or like a cartoon drawing of myself that is absolutely amazing, that very soon you're going to see plastered all over social media. That was really awesome, man. Appreciate that. And then otherwise with stock investments, I do some angel investing. So I own some shares in some small tech companies, I guess you would say. One is like a self-driving aftermarket kit for vehicles. And I think I got involved in like a Series B on that. And then I've obviously owned shares in my own companies, but I don't think that's usually what people mean when they ask if I invest in stocks. So I don't invest a ton of money into the stock market, simply because I like investments where I have direct control over them. So my real problem with paper assets, so things like stocks or bonds or things of that nature, is when we're talking about owning them in publicly traded entities. Well, unless you've got 10% or more, you don't have significant influence. So you can't direct things, right? And odds are you likely don't know the CEO, the CFO, or the board of directors, or anyone, at a high decision level place. And so for me, I don't like getting into companies or publicly traded entities, because I just don't feel like I've got a lot of control and I don't have any sort of inside track. Where with real estate investing, literally we can use all of the information available to us to make decisions, whereas with publicly traded entities, there's insider trading, which in theory doesn't happen, but I mean, come on. So anyways, I don't think I'm going to beat the insiders too often. So because their information isn't made widely available to everyone, I like to play in games where I feel like it's less rigged against me. And that's based upon a lot of personal experience. And I know that's not what everyone believes, and that's okay. What advice would you give to a 17-year-old that just graduated high school that would want to get into real estate investing, also in London, Ontario? Well, first things, congratulations for even thinking about that sort of topic at the age of 17. The second thing is, if you're interested in real estate investing as a 17-year-old, I think the best thing you can do is really just invest in your network. And by investing in your network, what I mean specifically is really just start, talking to other investors, get into networking groups, join local communities. So for example, Hussein, if you haven't checked out like London on Fire or Cashflow Tribe or some of the other amazing communities we've got here in London, Ontario for real estate investors, that's where I'd start. Then I would start trying to network and connect with others. So again, because you're young, just lean into that. A lot of older, more experienced investors, they'll really take a shining to you because they remember being young and, you know, wanting to get into real estate, but not knowing how to get started either. And so because of that, they're naturally going to project upon you. And that's actually great because they're going to project themselves onto you, and people like themselves. So they're naturally going to start to like you. And so for myself and a lot of the younger guys on my team, we found a lot of success just, you know, letting people become mentors for us. And so it's not too hard if you just approach, you know, approach those relationships open-minded, focused on trying to provide value as well as receive value. And if you can lead with value first, you're going to open up so many doors. So I really encourage you just to start making connections, start building relationships, all that great stuff. Definitely, Janelle's got a great point. You should be joining Project Mayhem, which is a free 2-week social media training and real estate training thing. And yeah, definitely keep hitting me up, guys, with comments. What's your usual approach when offering a cash for keys? So when we're doing cash for keys, Austin, first thing I'm going to do is kind of read the room. So we've got our own exact processes and stuff. It depends upon the size of the building and how many cash for keys we're trying to do. But in general, the very first thing I'm going to do is just talk to the tenants and get a read for the building and figure out, you know, are there people that I think would be interested in it? Are there people that I think would never be interested in it? And things of that nature. And then what I'm going to do is start having conversations with the tenants, because the more I can understand and the more I can learn about their situation, the more likely I'm going to be able to build the right offer to make a win-win for them. Now, when we're talking about doing cash for keys, one thing that I'll recommend to you guys that we found effective is rather than just saying a dollar amount, we often like to say a dollar amount and then say we'll also pay for their moving up to $500. Because sometimes what we find is, let's say I offer $4,000 and then it comes time for them to move and they're like, oh man, but now I gotta pay for moving too. And we're like, well, just take that from the 4,000. For whatever reason, they often feel like we're taking something away from them. Whereas if we give them $3,500 and then offer $500 to cover their expenses as well, that often makes them feel like they're getting more money, even though it's literally the exact same. So that can be a useful little mini strategy there. Otherwise, if you're looking at doing it at scale, Austin, getting a good paralegal is often a wise investment for your power team. Question. Hey Matt, I see that a lot of wholesalers' bird dog roles are dominated by man. Is that a true perception? Is this a great way to earn money for a down for someone new to REI? Okay. I think I'm a little bit confused here on my healing journey. But so first, it sounds like you're asking, are wholesalers or bird dogs predominantly male? I don't have statistics, but anecdotally speaking, I would say yes. There's a lot of wholesalers and bird dogs that are men. I don't know why, but definitely real estate investing seems to be male heavy or male dominated. At most networking groups, it's probably going to be, you know, anywhere from 50 to kind of 90% male, just depending upon the exact group. So for example, I think there's groups like the Right Club, which are going to be much more of an even split. And I would say, I don't know, the Right Club's maybe 60-40, whereas there's some smaller, older meetup groups that just don't advertise well, and I think just naturally become an old boys club. So there used to be one here in London that used to be like 90% or 100% male, depending upon the night. In general, I think most meetup groups that bring a diverse crowd often have more to offer, and that's not just me saying that. Like, I think that again, just the more perceptions and the more points of context we can get from different investors, just there's more strategies to learn from everyone. So that being said, I don't think that there's any reason that it has to be a male-dominated field. I just think that it is. I think that for a long time there was perception in society that finances or money was something that was, a male's responsibility. So I think naturally a lot of males were drawn to real estate investing because, it really is just a strategy for getting your finances under control, saving up the retirement fund, all that. But I don't think that there's any reason why females can't crush it as real estate investors or wholesalers. And again, you don't have to look too far. You can check out my YouTube channel and you'll see, I don't know now if we literally have 100 videos with kick-ass female investors, but we're probably getting close if we don't. So there's probably 100 or almost 100 videos on my YouTube channel. So if you're looking for some great female role models, I'd recommend, checking out like Investor Girl Britt in Saskatchewan, or Sarah Larby or Sarah Eder, who are both in the Brantford, Hamilton area for their investing. Or you can look at Jess from Luke and Jess Invest, or Bliss Realty. And again, there's Lemore, who's been on my channel talking about rent to owns. There's the Epic Alliance ladies that are literally building $1 billion empire. So lots of great role models out there if you're looking for it. Now, if you're asking, is wholesaling a great way to save up money for your down payment? Yeah, as long as you commit to becoming a wholesaler. Understand, a lot of people seem to think wholesaling is a silver bullet or a get rich quick strategy. I don't think it is. I think it's something where you're going to have to invest some time or money or both into it for it to reap rewards for you. But if done right, I think it can be a great way to learn a lot about real estate investing, get good at sales and negotiating, which is always a useful skill regardless of whether you want to be a real estate investor or do other things in life. And certainly a lot of the investors on my team, or a lot of the wholesalers on my team, their goal is to make a bunch of money wholesaling, save it up, and then redeploy it either as private money lenders or by buying properties. Any tips for buying, rehabbing, and refinancing a primary residence? Like everything, guys, for me, the biggest one is just run your numbers. To me, way too often investors don't focus. Way too often investors don't focus on the numbers for their first deal or two, or they think it's too hard to get a good deal. So earlier today, I was shooting an episode for Deal Destruction, which if you guys haven't checked out, Deal Destruction is going to be a new video series coming out on my YouTube channel. And what it is literally just me jumping deep into a deal dive for an investor and going through the numbers and giving them my honest opinion. And recently, on 2 of the episodes, we've had brand new investors. And so one of the biggest struggles I see with brand new investors is they start looking and they get fatigued by the market. So either their realtor or the market starts to tire them out. And the reason they're getting tired out is simply because, they go look at 3 or a dozen or maybe even a couple dozen properties and none of them fit their business model. And they start to really get scared and concerned that there's no good deals out there, or that the 1% rule can't be found anymore. And they really get into their own headspace and start psyching themselves out. And then they end up compromising and just buying some random property because they're like, man, any property is better than no property. That's not really true, but I can definitely understand the sentiment. And as a first-time investor, I kind of was there too. Now, when I ended up compromising on my property, it wasn't that much of a compromise, but I still ended up probably overpaying and moving a little bit faster than I needed to, just because I was like, back in 2010, I was just tired, and I was like, let's just buy something and move on. So just food for thought there. Someone's asking, will you spend your riches on cars? No, I will not be spending my riches on cars. If you guys know me at all, I'm not really a fancy things guy, so not really into fancy watches, fancy clothes, fancy cars, and just none of that really scratches an itch for me. Now, that's not inherently a judgment on other people that find pleasure in those things. It's just I don't personally find any pleasure in that. So honestly, I'm literally so basic that even given the opportunity to drive fancy sports cars or cars worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, I just have no interest, and I always pass on it just because I literally, To me, a car is just an A to B tool. It literally is just meant to take me from point A to point B. And so if I don't need to go from point A to point B, I don't need to even get into a point A to point B tool. I know that that's so counterintuitive to a lot of my younger viewers, and I know that a lot of people don't understand wealth accumulation if you don't want to spend it on fancy things. Just not my thing. I'd rather invest it into ideas and other businesses. Have you ever thought of flipping businesses? Yeah, absolutely. Hey, what's up, Mike McCracken? Been a while. Hey there, ex-landlord. Glad to see you are doing well. It was being great, your tenant, while I was there. All right, thank you, Jonathan. I don't particularly remember our exact interaction, but I'm glad that it was pleasant. Hello from Windsor. Thank you for all the info, rich content you created, especially for all of us in Ontario. Thanks, appreciate that, man. Question, since there is no equivalent 1031 exchange in Canada, what would you suggest that we do that can give an advantage such as a 1031 exchange? So the next best thing to a 1031 exchange here in Canada is going to be a VTB mortgage. So with a VTB mortgage, you can smooth the capital gains or spread out the capital gains on a property for up to 5 years. The other best thing, which you mentioned, was a BRRRR, but I understand with a BRRRR, we can't actually sell the property, and normally we're only going to be able to access about 80% of the equity in the property, so it's going to be rare that you can BRRRR at a greater than 80% loan to value unless you're getting into some private or exotic mortgages. But yeah, I wish we had a 1031 exchange here. If you guys are Americans but watching my content, make sure you check out and read up on what a 1031 exchange is. I've shot a couple of videos on 1031 exchanges, so you can find them on my channel, or lots of American content creators have done videos on the subject matter as well. Question, what are your thoughts on using funds from a HELOC as a private lender? So certainly lots of investors, when they first get into becoming private lenders, what they're often going to focus on doing is just making a little bit of interest arbitrage by borrowing from a low-cost HELOC and lending it out to someone privately secured or unsecured at a much higher rate. So it's not uncommon to see people grabbing, money off their HELOCs at maybe 3, 4, 5, 6% interest, and then lending it out for 8, 9, 10, 12, or even higher. Certainly that can be a great strategy, and you can definitely make a good spread off of that. For me, it really just comes down to what your goals are. So right now, it doesn't make a lot of sense for me to want to borrow from a HELOC to re-lend it out to make that small spread, because I'm actively growing businesses and I'm actively acquiring real estate. So oftentimes the return on my money is going to be higher in those businesses or those endeavors. So usually it's going to make more sense for me to allocate my money into those more active income streams now. But when it becomes the right time for me to focus on passive income, then I'm definitely going to be, reallocating my assets into that. And certainly, I think private lending is a great way to build up truly passive income. Let's see what else is going on here. How much more effective are handwritten letters versus printed letters? We buy houses context. How do you decide which addresses, postal codes to mail them to? Kirkland, so the first thing is, the marketing strategy that works best is the marketing strategy you use most consistently. It doesn't matter what strategy you use, the key is being consistent with it. For us, we only do handwritten letters. My business partner, Ben, he only does nice printed flyers. We both make lots of money from wholesaling. So it's not the type of flyer, it's the consistency of putting out flyers that really gets us success. So one, that's the first thing I would focus on, is having a consistent marketing campaign rather than focusing on the best type of flyer. Now, as far as which neighborhoods or properties do we hit, we're going to focus on, again, the properties that are in the right niche, right? That have the right sort of properties for us. So, for example, in general, if we're looking to wholesale properties to our buyers list, they're normally looking for small multifamilies or flip opportunities. So those properties are usually located in kind of the starter or mid-level neighborhoods. So right away, anything in suburbia doesn't make sense for us. Anything above $500,000 here in London usually isn't going to make sense for us. So we're going to ignore a lot of those markets and zone in on the neighborhoods and streets that fit within our business criteria. So it's really about understanding what you're trying to accomplish there. Not even the presidential Rolex. No, I don't think so. You and the gang have to come over for a campfire and real estate talk. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it. What is the best way to grow a real estate portfolio without using your own money? Well, living with why? It would be using other people's money if you're not going to use your own money. Now, in that regards, you're either going to, if we're looking at using OPM, other people's money, or OPR, other people's resources, we're either going to have to get really good at finding deals or really good at finding money and then finding someone really good at finding deals. In general, what I focused on is becoming really good at finding deals. And in general, if you get really good at finding deals, the money will always find its way to you because there's more money out there than there is deals. So if you get great at finding opportunities, or better yet, creating opportunities, and there is a difference between finding opportunities and creating opportunities, but if you can get really good at creating opportunities ideally, or at least finding them, then it won't be too hard to have the money come to you. And the key there is just networking and letting people know what you're up to. Again, depending upon your exact region, what sort of money we're talking about, your strategies for raising money will vary. But if you guys are interested in Cashflow Tribe Alpha, we've actually done a series of videos talking about how to raise OPM, how to do an investor binder, some of those basic best strategies. If you're interested in learning more about that, I encourage you to sign up for a free 14-day trial on Cashflow Tribe. Just go to cashflowtribe.ca. Meanwhile, I see a bunch of questions in YouTube, so I'm going to jump over here. Question: I'm thinking about buying a 6 to 7 room house next to a university in Quebec as my first purchase. I'm tight in money, so are there risks or things I should do to make this project successful? So the first thing, if we're looking at buying a property with a lot of bedrooms, make sure that you understand your local municipal rules. So are you allowed to rent it out by the bedroom? Is there a limit to the number of bedrooms? So for example, here in London, Ontario, there's a limit of 5 bedrooms to a house. So you're not allowed to have more than 5 bedrooms in a house, and you're not allowed to rent out more than 5 bedrooms in a house. So in London, if you were to buy a 7 bedroom house, odds are it's probably illegal. Now there's a small chance it might be grandfathered in, but more often than not, it's going to be an illegal use, which means you're taking on a certain risk. And so if you're tight on money and the only way that property works is as like a 7 bedroom student rental property, well, make sure you really understand the rules around student rentals in your local market. You look stoned as fuck. Well, maybe I am, but I literally haven't smoked yet because I'm not really feeling well. So we haven't even lit the joint yet, guys. So maybe it's just me being under the weather, or maybe you guys are projecting. I'm not sure. What are your thoughts on investing in cottage country land? Are folks with money not moving out of major cities, especially with the online work now, for example, New York? Raz, so certainly there's a lot of people thinking about the idea of buying or investing in cottages. Now, I think there's 2 things we need to really separate. The first is, are we looking at buying a cottage as mainly a lifestyle decision with some upside in regards to being able to rent it out occasionally, or is our primary business model going to be operating a real business and trying to make money from that cottage rental? Because those are 2 very different endeavors, and we're going to treat them very differently. For the lifestyle hack one, I think it's a great idea, and I think it's a great option for a lot of investors to mildly diversify while also still improving their lifestyle at the same time. So I think there's a lot of attractive aspects to being a real estate investor that owns 1 or 2 vacation rentals, even if your primary business isn't vacation rentals. But understand that the decision criteria or matrix we might put that property through is going to be different than if we're really focused on building a scalable vacation rental business. Again, different strokes for different folks. I'm not saying one's better than the other. Now, anecdotally speaking, I am hearing through the grapevine that exotic cars, boats, and cottages seem to be selling at record pace right now. And the anecdotal theories I'm hearing is people believe that international travel and wanting to live abroad and stuff like that might decrease as we continue to see travel restrictions and just kind of, the human psychology of all of us being locked up in our homes for so long likely will change some personal habits, maybe even create new phobias and things of that nature. So certainly there are investors that believe that we will see massive changes in consumption patterns, and they're trying to adjust their investment strategies and so forth. I just see someone saying that some cars are decreasing. Interesting. I'd love to hear which cars are decreasing, because I've been hearing from my buddies that pay attention to exotic cars that a lot of them are increasing, but again, that's just anecdotal evidence. How do I find better deals than on the MLS? First time home buyer, Kitchener area. So Peter, the first thing you want to do is sign up for every wholesaler email list possible. So for example, on my Instagram bio, you guys will find a link to my link tree, and in that link tree, you can go to mattmckeever.com/private deals, and you can sign up and get notified whenever we have a new deal being released from my team. But in addition, sign up for lots of other investors and wholesalers email lists as well. Then beyond that, start networking with realtors. So realtors will have what's called realtors will have pocket listings. And what pocket listings are private deals that have never been listed on the MLS. These are often only given away, these are often only introduced to clients that they've got existing relationships with, or clients that already fit the model of a prospective buyer for that sort of property. Then also don't be afraid to create your own leads. So you can go on like Kijiji and look at the for rent or the for sale ads and find the for sale by owners. That can sometimes be a great opportunity. And then we can also look at creating sellers. And so the way we like to create sellers is we just like to find people that own property and ask them, hey, have you thought about selling? If you're looking to buy a small multifamily property, one of the best ways is just literally go on Kijiji, go under for rent. Instead of calling them and asking to rent, call them and ask them if they'd be interested in selling. Start having those conversations. The more people you talk to that own real estate, the more often you're going to be presented with the opportunity to make money with real estate. So we've got a challenge here on my team, and it's the offer a day. And so one of the things I push every one of my wholesalers to do is make an offer every single day in order to make sure that they're taking enough action, they're stirring up enough activity that they can set themselves up for success as full-time wholesalers. What are tips you look for when looking at an off-market fourplex private sale? So if I'm looking at an off-market property, there's a lot of different factors I'm going to want to look at, right? So one, if we're talking about fourplex, I'm going to make sure that it's legal. So is it legally allowed to be a fourplex? Does the city consider it a fourplex right now? Does it meet the parking standards? Does it meet fire standards? All those different things. If you're in a city like London, Ontario that has rental licensing, does it meet the rental licensing requirements? All those different little government regulations, I'm going to want to make sure that my property meets those standards. Then I'm going to want to look at like the gross rent, what the gross rent multiplier is. Does it fit within my business model? Otherwise, when I'm looking at like multifamilies, I'm always looking for value add opportunities, right? So what could I do to this property to potentially increase its value? Now, sometimes it's things like changing out the kitchen. Or sometimes it's like adding new appliances. Like maybe there wasn't a dishwasher, I'm going to install a dishwasher. Or maybe there wasn't laundry, I'm going to install laundry into that unit. Again, it's going to depend upon the exact property, but I'm going to look for ways that I can maximize my gross rents. Sometimes it's as simple as just re-advertising the property. Hey, here's a 1+ den. Boom, I slap a door on it, now it's a 2-bedroom rather than a 1-bedroom. Or boom, I throw a closet in there, now it's a 2-bedroom rather than a 1-bedroom. Well, normally 2 bedrooms rent for a lot more than a 1-bedroom, so that can actually create a lot of value there as well. Or maybe just understanding that the current rents are under market value and finding a way to generate tenant turnover, whether that's doing cash for keys, whether that's asking the existing landlord, the existing owner, to provide us vacant possession on that property. There's a lot of different ways we can go about getting creative. It's just understanding what is someone looking for in your market as an investor, right? So if you're looking to wholesale a property, the number one question you have to be asking yourself is, what do people buying wholesale deals want? What does a flipper want? What does a BRRRR investor want in my market? If you're in the States, instead of Kijiji, it's Craigslist, right? So I'd be hitting up Craigslist then. Kitchener-Waterloo, I think, is a great area. I think it's hard to get cash flow in Kitchener-Waterloo, but I think it's a great area for flippers. I think long-term, it's got a lot of potential. I know local Kitchener-Waterlooers love to play up the Silicon Valley of the North. I think that is true to an extent, but at the same time, to that extent, we do need to understand that, especially in that digital creative technology space, that we're going to see people be more and more geo-independent and not necessarily having to be tethered to a physical office. All right. Okay, what else is going on here? General fees property managers charge. So property management fees will vary depending upon the market that you're looking to invest in. In general, you're probably, for a large multifamily property, so let's say a 20-unit apartment building or bigger, here in Southwestern Ontario, you're probably looking anywhere from 3 to 6% of gross rents is going to be the fee they charge. Now, if we're looking at a smaller multifamily property, probably anywhere from 5 to 10%. If we're doing short-term rentals or vacation rentals, probably closer to like 10 to 20%. In general, if you're asking me what I put into my spreadsheets, I'm going to put in a 10% property management fee. And what I bundle into my property management fee is also a 1% snow removal and 1% lawn maintenance. So really, I'm saying 8% property management, 1% snow, 1% lawn to get me to that 10%. And that's going to be the number I use as a ballpark. Now, normally and ideally, we're going to get our property management for a little bit less, but I want to have a buffer there just to be safe. What else is going on here? Question, what are your thoughts on using fund? Oh, we already did that one. Matt, why do you love that tube so much, bro? Matt, why do you love that tube so much? I don't even know what tube we're talking about. Any mortgage broker recommendations? Yeah, I would definitely recommend you check out Josh and Aaron from the Finlay Mortgage team. If you guys haven't seen them, they're on my channel almost every Friday. I know we missed them last Friday, but they're going to be coming back this Friday, and they'll be back for every Friday going forward. Great group of mortgage agents based out of the Kitchener-Waterloo area, and they're just very investor oriented. So I've personally financed some of my deals with them. I know lots of other investors that have financed deals with them, and they can kind of cover the full spectrum. So they can, whether you're looking to finance a single family home for your principal residence, or you're looking at doing like a land development deal, we've actually got some really cool videos coming out in the future discussing how to go about financing land development deals with Scott, who's kind of their development specialist from the Finlay team. So really encourage you guys to check out the Finlay team if you haven't done so already. All right. With your student housing, how do you compete with the low prices of the dorms provided by the university, where I would like to buy some dorm rooms for $300? So just to be very clear, here in Ontario, we're never competing with dorms because one, the dorms are usually as expensive or more expensive than us, but also, at least in Ontario, usually the dorms are going to be 100% occupied. So it's oftentimes students are trying to get into the dorm because they want the dorm experience, but they can't because there literally just isn't capacity for everyone. So sounds like in Quebec, if I remember correctly where you're from, it sounds like a completely different market dynamic there. So here in Ontario, as a landlord, it's certainly a landlord's market for renting out student rentals, where it sounds like in your markets may be different. So maybe student rentals aren't the right way to go. What are your thoughts on gold and silver? So I think gold and silver can be great stores of wealth. I don't think that they're great creators of wealth, unless you've got a gold or silver mine or smithing operation or something like that. So I think that they're only a store of wealth. I don't think that they generate wealth. So if you're buying gold or silver to get wealthy, I think you're doing it wrong, straight up, guys. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I was a bit of a silver bug, and I thought that there was, I was like, oh, fiat currencies are going to crash, da da da. Just understand that there are a lot of vested interests and a lot of very powerful interest groups who it's in their best interest to keep our currency and our economies together to a certain degree. So it's highly unlikely that, that we're going to see a complete erosion or collapse of our entire monetary system. And if we do, I mean, there's so many problems at hand that unless we're talking about you owning physical gold and physical silver, I don't think that it's a great thing for most investors. And so for the average investor watching my channel, I would think silver and gold probably doesn't fit your investing criteria. Now, if we're talking about investing in gold and silver from like a permanent portfolio perspective, where you're maybe just looking to allocate a certain percentage of your net worth into a broad basket of commodities and precious metals in order to help you just, in order to help you create a more resilient or robust portfolio, I can appreciate that to a certain degree, but in general, that's going to be, in my opinion, more for investors that are getting at the stabilize or the drawdown phase of their retirement or personal finance journey, rather than coming from investors looking to grow. I see a few people commenting about Bitcoin and stuff. I think cryptocurrency and blockchain technology in particular are fascinating. I think that they will have huge impacts on society long term. However, I think that it's still very early in that world, and I think it takes a lot longer than a lot of the hodlers think. So I know there's a lot of people that think that crypto is going to the moon, or because of current instability or whatever, that we're going to see, a dramatic shift in the valuation of those sort of cryptocurrencies. I think they're interesting. I dabble. I've got a cryptocurrency ATM, so like I literally own a Bitcoin ATM. And I used to host a cryptocurrency meetup here in London. So I used to have a local meetup group where, a dozen or 2 dozen people would get together and talk about cryptocurrency. There's actually a lot of guys that were actively working on different programs like UBIC and ARC and a couple others that I can't even remember now. So again, I think it's really interesting. I enjoy learning about it, but I'm not going to be investing substantial amounts of my money. Now, if you want to take a little bit of play money and gamble in cryptocurrencies, that's one thing. But again, to me, it circles back to what we were talking about with stocks or bonds. Do I have a competitive advantage in this space? Why would I want to invest in an asset class where I don't have significant influence? Where with real estate or small businesses, I have direct influence in how those assets and that capital is deployed. And so because of that, because I've got direct influence, my perception is that I can try and right the ship. And my assumption is that no one cares more about my money than me. So again, that's kind of the basis of the approach that I'm using for investing. I'm not saying everyone should go about it that way, but that's certainly my thoughts. Matt, I haven't heard you on any videos talk about the infinite return with rental properties. Did I miss it, or have you not talked about it? Paul, I guess you would have to explain to me specifically what we're talking about infinite return with rental properties, but certainly if we're talking about BRRRRs, our return on investment or our cash on cash can be infinite because oftentimes we're able to refinance, pull out all of our initial capital. So essentially, like, our capital basis is zero because we really didn't invest in the initial, or we got all of our initial money invested in. But at the same time, like, you know, when we're literally talking about like infinite returns, I guess I probably could make more clickbaity titles around that, but I feel like I'm a strong proponent of buy and hold, burn investments. So that's a pretty strong recurring theme. Is it hard to get a mortgage if you use a corp versus buying personally? So in regards to buying a corporation or buying personally, there's a lot of different considerations to be had there. One thing to understand that if you're buying a corporation, you're likely still going to have to personally guarantee it. So if your goal was like buying a corporation is going to, you know, keep all your personal assets safe, understand that usually the banks are still going to require you to give a personal guarantee. If your goal is asset protection or creditor proofing, oftentimes in Canada, a umbrella insurance policy personally would probably serve you just as well as going through all the hoops and hassles of setting up a corporation. But realistically, if you're trying to decide whether buying a corporation or not, this is a discussion that best have with your tax planner. So talk to your accountant and talk to your lawyer. And if you don't have an accountant and a lawyer, well, it's probably a sign that we're probably putting the cart before the horse anyways. So often I find investors, they want to focus on like step 13 rather than step 1. So I would encourage everyone to always focus on step 1 first. Oh, that's kind of an interesting question. I don't know if you already talked about this, why you stopped at 100 units. So I didn't actually stop at 100 units. I just kind of stop counting units at 100 units, but I definitely did slow down. And a big part of that was I kind of had enough money for Matt. So I wasn't necessarily worried about stacking more money. So I needed a reason to want to accumulate more. So for a while, then I just kind of focused on YouTube and accumulating followers and building this out, started a few other businesses. I found that more personally interesting than building up the real estate portfolio. Now, recently I've started a new business with some partners and we're aggressively buying apartment buildings. We just haven't released a lot of content on that yet, but we will be having videos come out. But you know, in the last like 8-9 months now, we've acquired 70 plus units and we'll be acquiring another 20 something, I think, in August. So I still am acquiring. It's just like, I don't know, I kind of thought it was boring to just keep talking about what I was doing. So then I wanted to start really showing you guys what other investors were doing. So if you guys want to see me talk more about my portfolio, like let me know in the comment section, right? Give me that feedback loop. But it just seemed like, for me, I don't know, like I can just keep talking about what I'm doing with real estate, but honestly, it's kind of boring. Like people want to see me blowing out walls, building huge additions and stuff like that. And I'm like, that's not how you make money, you know? So a lot of the things that they do on HGTV that look really cool on camera aren't necessarily the most practical for a business owner. And so because of that, like a lot of my real estate's kind of boring. Like now we're just buying really big boxes. So like or small apartment buildings and slowly fixing them up. And again, it's not like they're war zones. They're just rough, you know, like buildings that have been neglected for a while, got some deferred maintenance, things like that. And we're just going in, putting in new kitchens, painting them up, fixing appliances as necessary, just all those basic things. I do not manage my own units anymore. I've got employees now that take care of all my management. Hey, what's up, Mark Smith? What else going on here? Matt, you're so inspirational. Thank you. Appreciate that, Tiffany. I would love to continue watching the stream, but I really need to go and play. Okay. Matt, do you look for properties that you just need cosmetic updates, or do you consider properties that need to be stripped down to the studs too? Great question, Bruce. So I'm open to any property that can make me money. However, in general, I'm going to probably prioritize the projects that have the highest return on time. And often I find the properties and projects that need the least amount of work often come with the highest return on time. So it's usually the properties that are really dirty, disgusting, but not necessarily structurally compromised that often have some of the greatest upside or opportunities in them. But we definitely do buy properties that are full guts. It's just that the margins and numbers are going to have to make sense, right? Because that very basic that very basic lipstick flip, you know, where I'm going to spend $5,000 or $10,000 just painting it and reflooring it. We can probably do that we can certainly do that in under 30 days. Whereas the structural stuff where I'm going to need to pull permits and I got to line up sub trades and a GC and all those moving parts, that takes a lot longer. And so that doesn't mean there's anything wrong with that strategy, but it's a lot more work. And because it takes longer, there's also a lot more risk factors. And because it's a bigger project as well, there's just more moving parts, and it just creates more opportunity for something to break or fall apart. And now, it just means I'm going to want to make sure that I'm compensated justly for taking on those additional risks and that additional timeline. In general, I'm usually going to find that a lot of investors will overpay for those gut jobs, and because of that, they're just going to pay more than me, so I'm not going to be buying it because someone else will pay more. Whereas sometimes it's the disgusting deferred maintenance but no structural issues where I can really see past that and still make the deal work. Would you buy a multiplex which is highly under rented but the current owner has already added as many rooms possible with no room for value add? If there's no room for value add and it's severely under rented, the first thing I would focus on is tenant turnover, right? That's going to be the highest value add. So can the landlord provide me with a vacant unit? If so, then that's interesting. We might be able to make a deal from that. If not, then probably not, because there's really no real upside, right? If I can't get tenant turnover, if they've maxed out the potential in the property, odds are they're probably trying to sell it for top dollar, and it's just not going to be a good fit. When you buy an investment property that's already rented out, can you choose to receive it vacant, or do you legally have to allow the tenants to stay in the property? Lewis, so it's going to depend upon your local market. Here in Ontario, Canada, you can require the building be vacant when you buy it. However, the owner may not be able to provide it. So either at the time of closing, you're either going to have to let the deal die, or you're going to have to accept it with the tenant. Now, usually what's going to happen is the landlord's going to try and come to a compromise or an agreement, a win-win agreement with the tenant, and they're going to likely do cash for keys, where they pay the tenants to move out. Right now, it's not uncommon, anywhere from $2,000 to $5,000 for a tenant buyout here in southwestern Ontario. All right, guys. Have you invested in physical gold or silver? Nothing significant. Not maybe a few $100s at most. Hey Matt, what do you think about e-commerce? Not necessarily drop shipping, but creating a brand. I think e-commerce can work well. I think it doesn't work nearly as well as a lot of gurus make you think on online. If you guys haven't discovered the account Ballbusters, I recommend you guys check them out. They're often revealing or exposing gurus and people that say they make a lot of money but don't necessarily do it. And I think that is very rampant in the fulfilled by Amazon e-commerce space. Now, that's not to say that you can't make money doing it, because I have met individuals that do it. But I don't think it's as simple and as easy as everyone makes it seem. Where do I personally learn personal branding? So Gary Vee is a big inspiration for me. And then just the other influencers I follow, I try and really absorb what they're doing and internalize that. And beyond that, for myself, just reading lots of books on marketing, branding. I read a lot on company culture and stuff like that as well. So political movements, social movements, cults, all those things, like just really what drives a community and environment and ecosystem to become self-sustaining, and how do you get that? Some of my favorite books on the subject matter would be Ben Horowitz's "What You Do Is Who You Are" is really good when you're talking about like company culture and things like that. When we're talking about like other personal branding, I can't actually think of too many books. I feel like most of them are more like branding or like more marketing oriented than branding, really. But I read a lot. And watch a lot of biographies and autobiographies of successful business people. So like Walt Disney, Henry Ford, Westinghouse, Tesla, Edison, all those guys. The robber baron capitalists, so like the JP Morgans, drawing a blank, but all those guys. I've read so many biographies and read or watched so many documentaries on them. So I find all those very interesting just to get inspired by, because there's so many patterns in history, and like, again, you can just see certain times or innovations, and I definitely think that what we're seeing right now with social media and personal branding is a pivotal moment in mass communications and consumerism. So it's going to be interesting to see how this all turns out. That is for sure. How do you spell? I think it's Baller Busters or something like that. I think it's BALLER Busters. I'm not positive though. If you go under the accounts that I follow and type in ball, you should be able to find them. Purple Cow is a book actually that's on my reading list. So I actually haven't read it yet, but it's in my Audible list. I don't know much about the US market, so I can't really help too much. One of my favorite books, and the book I've given away the most copies of, is Early Retirement Extreme by Jacob Lund Fisker. And he's the creator of Early Retirement Extreme, the internet forum and blog. Really encourage you guys he approaches thinking and personal finances in such a novel way compared to the way most of us are taught in society. He really takes a engineer's perspective on it, and I just find it fascinating. And engineers like systems-based approach or process-based approach, absolutely loved it. So really encourage you guys check that out. Yeah, not really smoking tonight, Cody. Just haven't been feeling great. Better to buy rentals now, even though prices are still going crazy, or wait until the housing crashes drops, which everyone assumes will be next year, if it does actually happen. Yeah, James, so the biggest problem there, and the biggest thing I'm going to say is, understand that investors make money in every market, and investors make money with every strategy, but you don't make money in every market with every strategy. So you do have to be aware of what strategy is going to work in the market that you're currently in. I think trying to time the market with any investment is a difficult proposition. I think it's just as difficult with real estate as it is trying to time the stock market. So I wouldn't necessarily encourage people wait. What I would encourage them to do is get a very clear business model and make decisions based upon that business model. So properties aren't expensive if the business model works. So the properties I'm buying today, could I have bought them for a lot less back in 2010? Yes. But the market was completely different. Rent prices were in a completely different place. The lending environment was a completely different place. And the general market's perspective was in a completely different space. So based upon all the factors today and the business model, what I'm trying to accomplish with real estate investing, I can still buy properties with cash flow. It still fits within my business model. So even though I could buy them for less in the past, it doesn't really matter. Now, if tomorrow those properties get cheaper, it doesn't mean that I panic and I'm going to lose everything. It means that I'm just going to double down and buy more because they're just going to work even better at the same like at a lower price, right? Because my business model is still just focused on cash flowing properties where I've got value add opportunities. All right. Okay, guys. Well, we're coming up on an hour. Appreciate everyone hanging out with me. Yes, Dave, I am in a bathtub. This is clearly your first time here on Monday, but appreciate you hanging out with me. Yep, Split the Difference is a great book. All right, guys, I'm going to wrap up. Appreciate everyone that hung out with me on Instagram tonight. Again, every Monday night I'm doing this. Usually I'm a little bit higher energy. Usually we do actually smoke weed. Just wasn't feeling it tonight, but I'm sure I'll be back at it next Monday. Thank you, guys. Appreciate you. And appreciate you, YouTube. Love the fact that 50 plus of you hang out with me every single Monday night while we just chill in my bathtub. If you are new here, this literally is the bathtub. There's the beautiful shower. Nice glass wall here. But anyways, just awesome that you guys hang out with me. Really appreciate it. And even though I didn't smoke, if you guys smoke, I hope you did and had a good time. And I'll be back next Monday. And hopefully if I look high next Monday, it's at least because I am high and not just because I'm a little bit under the weather. Appreciate you guys, though. Stay safe, don't get infected, all that good stuff. I'll see you on the next video. Thank you, guys.